Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Real Life Gaze podcast. This is episode 2. Hello, everybody. My name is Gareth, and I am joined by my lovely co-host, Lee. Lee, how are you?
Hello. Yes, I'm doing very well. Thank you. How are you, Gareth?
Fabulous, fabulous as always.
Good.
This episode is going to be all about asexuality. So without further ado, please welcome our guest for this evening, Brandy. Brandy, how are you?
I'm very, very well. Thank you. How are you boys?
Great. Thank you for
Good,
joining us
good.
again.
Yes, thank you.
So as we've mentioned before, we've got a lot of guests and episodes that we're kind of regurgitating from our YouTube channel. And Brandy was so kind to join us a few months ago to talk about asexuality. So before we get into it, Brandy, could you just give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Brandy, and I am from BC, Canada. I am a mom of 3, and I am asexual.
And this is, as I say, what this episode is all going to be about. So for those of us out there who don't know what asexuality is, could you do the difficult task of trying to summarize it for us, please? Give us a description of what is asexuality.
All right. Well, the basic definition of asexuality is the low or absence of sexual attraction to other people. So the way that I look at it is you have all sorts of sexualities, and one of the most, I guess, nuances is the pansexual, and that is the ability to be sexually attracted to anybody. Well, just as with anything else, if you've got to have one, you have to have a polar opposite. And that is pretty much what asexuality is the polar opposite of being sexually attracted to everyone, except for we are either generally low, have very little sexual attraction, or experience no sexual attraction or romantic attraction to others.
And am I right in saying there are different types of asexuality, because asexuality is a spectrum, I believe? Yes,
it is a spectrum, and the reason being is because it kind of includes all of the little nuances, such as the differentiation between sexual and romantic attraction, and the different ways that we experience those bits of sexual attraction, lack thereof, or romantic attraction, or lack thereof, or both. So because there are so many little nuanced bits and pieces to it, we do have a spectrum within asexuality. Just as, I guess, you could say, the same is true on the opposite end. You might be more attracted to one particular sex or one particular, gender, or a type of person. We are we are the same way. So.
And the flag, can you talk about what each color of the flag represents?
Sure. The flag is black, gray, white, and purple. So with the black section of the flag, that is your ace arrow sexuality, which is the complete absence of sexual attraction and romantic attraction to others. Then you have a gray, which would be the gray sexuality, that's a person who kind of has a little bit more ebb and flow in their asexual identity. Then you have the white, which is, again, it's a different part of the spectrum of that particular flag. And then you have the purple for community, purple, from what I remember, is the community in general color. So you add all 4 of those colors together and you get our beautiful asexual flag.
And what color of the spectrum would you say you fall into?
I fall into a dark gray.
Okay.
And the reason I say the dark gray is because I do have a little bit of gray flux in my personal identity, which is something that, so I can be in a relationship and find that over time, I can build a little bit of a sexual attraction to people. but I can also lose it just as quickly. So I tend to be more to the black side than the gray side, but I still classify myself as a gray sexual, just because it is not firmly in the 100% zero attraction, absolutely never, or zero romantic interest in relationships whatsoever. So I tend to think of myself as a gray sexual.
And when did you realize that you were asexual?
Well, that's a tough one, because asexuality in itself is fairly new in the definition of how we've been identified and noticed within the LGBTQ community. So I've always known my whole life that I have been different when it comes to other people, and finding that, I've never really had a need or desire to seek out boys or girls, have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It really made no never mind to me. And when I was growing up, I grew up in a very religious personal affiliation. So I grew up at very young. My mom introduced me to the church. And then as the rest of my family left, I stayed, because for me, it felt like a good place to be when I didn't necessarily have or experience what everybody else was experiencing. So that being said, as I grew older, I found safety in the bit of religion and the whole abstinence and chastity and celibacy and all of this kind of thing, which is different. That's a choice. For me, it wasn't ever a choice, but it was a good place to hide.
Yeah.
Because at least that way, when you're growing up and, you don't have the ability to have something to tie on to, people would be like, oh, well, you don't like boys. Like as a girl, as a female, you don't like boys. Oh, well, then you have to be gay. Or, you're just afraid to let everybody know you're a lesbian. It's like, no, I'm neither one, right? Like I don't, so it became an easy place for me to be like, no, I am a member of this particular faith, and it is our belief that this is how we are. And people accepted that. That was okay. But to feel like you just was not okay, as I'm sure you guys can't understand, is when you're different, and you just find ways to move through it. And that was my way of moving through it. So it wasn't until probably a couple of years ago that I actually found the definition of asexuality. So I could finally put a name to what I was, because growing up, the only asexual thing I knew about was worms. Worms could reproduce without having to have a partner. And that's the only definition of asexual that I actually knew. So that did not fit.
No.
And so it wasn't until the last, I'm going to say 15 years, where asexuality actually became something that we could tangibly put ourselves into. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I actually found the word asexual and was able to reference my experience and the way that I am into a sexual orientation, so to speak.
What was that feeling like when you finally had, I don't want to say label, but finally had a name that you could call yourself? Was it like a weight's lifted? It's like, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because, it's when you finally have something, when you grow up feeling on your own, you feel by yourself. And when you finally have something to put it into, you all of a sudden are no longer alone anymore. And that's the way it felt. It doesn't matter if I see one or two of me anywhere else. I know I am not by myself anymore. And all of a sudden you feel a sense of community that you've never had, a sense of freedom that this is okay. I am okay.
Yeah.
Which growing up, you don't have that.
Well, trust us, we can sympathize.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's the sense of belonging And it's the confirmation that you're not alone and you're not a freak, you know, and
absolutely
all your friends and family that are telling you that you've just not found the right boy yet, or you're doing it wrong, all these things that you're like, no, you know, when you get that name and the term and that, you know, orientation that you belong, it's confirmation that, yeah, you're not broken, you don't need fixed.
Exactly. And this is the thing in particular, historically, that I've heard with asexuality in particular, is we're told throughout, it's okay to be straight, it's okay to be gay, it's okay to be, you know, make choices, but it's not okay to be flat. Like it's like that's kind of the way that I've been looking at it my whole life. And you know, it's when it comes to this type of thing, it's because it's so complex. And a lot of us were told growing up that it was a psychological disorder, it was a medical disorder, and that made you feel broken without being told you're broken. And that's the thing, is the psychology behind asexuality has never been caught up. Like even today, we are still relatively unknown within the queer community. We are still, you know, very misunderstood as a queer population because A, there are so few of us, and B, the few of us that there are, we experience asexuality so different. We identify so differently. And it is much more a, for lack of a better term, personal journey, I guess, in finding your own identity. And I think, you know, just as, and I might be wrong in this, but I believe that everybody has their own personal journey within the queer community. And you have your own nuances that you still, no matter what part of the community you're in, you still have to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I think this one is particularly hard, because just because you know one asexual doesn't mean you know and understand asexuality as a whole. You can only put it into your own personal journey and your own personal experience.
So what would you say is the biggest misconceptions then of asexuality?
That we're robots. You know, like we get a lot of people at, you know, when they assume that because we don't feel sexual attraction, that we don't feel anything, which is not true whatsoever. We still have the ability to love. We still have the ability to have friendships and desires. And because I guess the part that is really confusing as well is we can have sex as well. It is not that we are incompetent. We can have it. It's just become, first, a lot of us, it becomes a personal decision on A, whether or not you want to have it, and B, those reasons why you do.
Yeah.
And that can be for a number of reasons, such as, you know, you have a partner that you want to keep happy. They find ways to keep you happy. You need to find ways to keep them happy. And if you're okay with it, then that's what you do to keep them happy. It doesn't necessarily mean or take away from your asexuality in doing so.
But am I right in saying you can still enjoy having sex? Because for a lot of people who are asexual, I believe you fit into this category. When you are in love with someone, that's when you can find the enjoyment out of sex, because it's the intimacy level and the love-making side of it that you're enjoying.
Well, that's just it. Sex is a physical act. You can enjoy a physical act. There is nothing wrong with that, and it doesn't make you any more or less asexual for enjoying that particular act. It's that inherent need for it.
Yeah.
That, right? And that chemical reaction that happens when somebody that you find attractive, walks by and you get that feeling of wanting to engage in sex with them, right? And that's what we were talking about when it comes to the sexual attraction to people. It's not the act of sex itself. That is very different than the initial attraction. So yeah, I can and do and will enjoy sex at times. Sometimes, not gonna lie, I cannot stand it. And it doesn't matter how much I love my partner or how much I care about my partner. There are times where, to me, just the idea of it, everything about it repulses me. And that's why I put myself into that gray category, because I find my feelings and nuances and experiences in a constant state of flux when it comes to sex, sexual attraction, all of it. It does mold itself. And it's for a person I care about. That's how you know it's different than just, oh, I don't think that person's attractive, so I am asexual all of a sudden. No, it's that person that you have strong feelings for, and those feelings flow throughout the time, not because of anything they said or did. It is just your brain and body chemistry works.
So you said that your relationship-wise, you've got kids. You were married, yes?
I was married for almost 10 years.
And how did your asexuality affect it, if it did?
Well, this was the nice part about my marriage, was that the person that I was married to also came from a hands-off kind of relationship. Like his family was not the kind that you saw public displays of affection or anything like that, but you knew in your heart of hearts that they could just look at each other and there was absolute love there from beginning to end. And that was through all generations of family. And so it wasn't that he grew up with that little or no insight on the PDA thing. So for him, it seemed very natural to have somebody who, and for me to find somebody where sex was not the most prevalent part of the relationship. We were in it because we wanted that love and companion for life. Yes, we wanted to build a family as well. And so that was our focus more often than not, was putting where our priorities really, really lied.
But going back just to say, when you were younger, I know you said that religion was a big part of your life then, it maybe still is now. But if you could go back to your younger days, you've got these feelings of, I'm not 100% sure what I'm feeling. Back then, could you see a future with children and a partner, or was that still like a grey area as well?
That's a really good question. I actually, for the longest time, when you asked me when I was younger, what I was going to do when I got older, and I was going to be a single mom and I was going to adopt children. No matter who you asked at any point, that is the answer that you would get.
Yeah.
I never in my head ever that I would get married. I never had the inkling to really, do that until I met the man that I did marry. And the reason why was just because I never thought that there was somebody out there so in sync with how I felt. Not that he is asexual, because he's not, but just growing up, seeing the boys always so sex forward, and to have somebody who was so reserved in that area, it was like, okay, for the first time in my life, I feel like I've met the person that I could possibly share my life with. Turns out, one who proposed to him. Go figure.
Really? I love that. And you were married for 10 years.
We were married for exactly 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And now, do you find being single, do you find dating difficult now that you've come to terms, and over the last couple of years you now identify as asexual? Do you find dating difficult now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really hard because, you get again, with these misconceptions and I don't know if it is male ego in particular. I don't know any male asexuals to be able to toss this idea, but there is this idea of, well, you just haven't found the right person yet. It's like, I was married to a man I loved for 10 years. Trust me. And I've also dated. Yeah, I've met people. It is me. It is me. And that is never going to change. And so now it becomes a matter of, so to speak, especially as a female looking to date males, it becomes a conquest for them. Is I can be the one to change your mind. And it's like, please, if somebody says this to you, male, female, or otherwise, if somebody says that this is you, respect that. It is not a challenge for you to overcome. It is something that we have to live with. So we ask that you respect that part of us, just as we want to respect you. But yeah.
And when you, obviously, because it's been quite recent, when you came out, so to speak, because you are publicly asexual, it's on your social media, it's on your TikTok. Did you have any pushback or any negative reactions from family or friends?
I had a lot of friends. They basically said, "Oh shit! All of a sudden, this makes sense. This makes sense." And the reason why is because of being around people. And people tend to be very comfortable around me and they feel safe around me and they could never understand why. And part of it, I'm sure, is my personality, but part of it is that ability to just be yourself, be comfortable with who you are. And I'm not going to make a play on your vulnerability, myself feel bigger or better than the opposite sex or, as a potential partner. I'm not going to take advantage of that. I never will. I never have. And so when you've got all of these types of things going on, it's a challenge in the sense that we have this comfort level, but it's also a challenge in the sense that people are often apprehensive in the sense that why they have to understand the why, and that we don't feel this way. And the only answer we can give you is we don't. Yeah. We just don't.
Simple as that.
And exactly. And sometimes the simplest answer is the one that you have to go with. And some people just don't want to accept that at all.
And those are the type of people you don't want in your life anyway.
No. No, you really don't.
No.
So do you feel that you were born the way you are? Like me as a gay man, I feel that I was born gay.
Absolutely. Absolutely I do. I think we all just kind of know. And yeah, just like you guys, you guys know that even as young boys, there's parts of yourself and parts of your personality that shine through. And for myself anyway, I found my lack of giving a crap about what anybody else wanted, that was really what started that feeling, that kind of dive into. And I mean, I've seen counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists my whole life. And, you just try to say, this is just me. This is, it's like, well, what about, wanting to wear dresses so that you look pretty? It's like, I wear dresses because I want to feel pretty. I do my hair because I want to do it this way. I wear makeup because I want to, it makes me feel good. It has no bearing whatsoever on anybody else. What I wear, what I look like, nothing. Because guess what? I've never cared. I just don't care. And I don't want any, and I don't care if anybody else does as well. And that's the thing, is a big thing with me is I grew up having major body issues. I was very tall and skinny. Well, first I was short and skinny, and then I grew up super tall, super fast, and then I became tall and skinny, and it was unhealthily skinny. So I did everything to hide that part of myself, and I was okay with that for the most part. But then I hit my my late teens, early 20s, and you guys know the feeling. You became a bar star. You could wear whatever you want. And you know what? For the first time in my life, I felt good about my body because I didn't have any outside influence affecting that. So I could wear whatever I wanted, and I would go out, and I started to feel really good about me. And over time, I've realized I like my body more and more and more, and I'm okay with showing it off. There's a difference, because people would say, oh, well, if you've done some modeling before and you've shown your body in certain ways, then you can't be asexual. It's like, no, I can be proud of my body just as anybody else can.
Yeah, of course.
It is not a contradiction, but people do find, because their idea of what asexuality is, and what I don't conform to that simply because, well, that's giving a mixed message. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah. Bullshit.
Being proud of your body and being asexual are two different things.
100%. What would you say then would be the most annoying questions you get asked about being asexual? What would you say is the most annoying?
There's a couple of them. One of them obviously is, but I do need to clarify that as annoying as these questions are, I understand why people ask so. That being said, one of the ones that I do find annoying, in the sense of it's more how it's said, not the question itself, is, well, so what, you just don't like sex? Right? Like it's, and that again, just the implication of the act, it's no. And then as soon as you say no, it's almost like a white shield goes across their eyes, and they're not ready to hear anything anymore, because you've just contradicted yourself in their eyes without being able to explain the why. So that in itself is extremely annoying. And of course, the other one, especially as a woman, and yes, I have answered this before, but it is still makes it no less annoying, is, do you masturbate? It's, and again, it's simply because, would you ask anybody else that particular question, unless, like, not even unless, it's not anybody else's business per se. So to me, I find it more annoying, and it's because it's the how and the why they're asking. Not because they're genuinely interested, it's because...
Hang on. I'm just going to score that question off my paper.
But again, it becomes the why are you asking? That's, and again, I have no problem answering certain questions when I understand it is for educational purposes.
Yeah.
Because it's not, when it's for educational purposes, it's not necessarily asking me per se. It's asking as a population, and it's something, again, that comes down to me, not us as a population, because everybody again has their own personal opinion on it.
It's because it's so varied, as you say, because you can be demisexual, you can be, all about the romance, you just want the intimacy. Some people never have sex, some people do have sex, some people have sex but don't like the connection, but some people have the connection but don't want the sex. There's just so many aspects to asexuality. To generalize it is very difficult.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's where I think my biggest thing is with, if you are going to ask a person about asexuality, please tell me about asexuality then you have to be open to listening and hearing them out as an individual. And you also have to be open to doing a little bit of, personal research, because that, again, when you know one person with as asexual, you only know their personal experience. You don't necessarily know the whole. And it's great in the sense that over the last few years, especially, having a community of people to talk to about their personal experiences and get, their input on what they're experiencing. And it really helps to just allow you to feel more and more connected with yourself.
How do you feel when members of the LGBTQ plus community dismiss your asexuality as part of being queer? Because that happens, there's a battle with asexual people who are like, no, we belong as part of the Pride Month. We belong part of the community. Why are you ostracizing us? And how does that make you feel? And where do you think that comes from within the community?
Well, first part is like the where does it come from? This is my own personal belief, is that it took so long for you guys, or for the community as a whole, as individuals, as gays, as lesbians, as trans, as non-binary, for everybody it took so long for you guys to find your voices and be able to be comfortable out in the world. And still to this day, not everybody can go anywhere as a queer person. And I look at the definition of queer, and that means not the norm. So anything that is not the norm belongs in the LGBTQ plus, period. If you are not the norm, this is where you belong. And as far as the pushback goes, it's within the community. And this is my feeling, is that because you guys took so long to be where you are and recognize that there is a sexual orientation that is not hetero, that is okay. And you guys fought so long and so hard for this, that to be like, if you don't have sexual attraction, this is of the idea of who is sexually attracted to whom. So if you don't have it, you don't belong here. It's like, no. And when I explain it to people, I always explain it to this way. When you are in school, you learn for every reaction, there is an equal and opposite reaction. If you have push, you have to have pull. If you have up, you have to have down. Therefore, if you are going to accept that somebody can love anyone, you have to accept that somebody cannot, or if somebody can be sexually attracted to anyone, then you have to be accepting to the fact that somebody can be sexually attracted to no one. And we are that polar opposite. Therefore, we have to be included in that, because you can't have one without the other, period.
Very true.
That's the way that I see it.
Mic drop moment, mic drop.
Well, and I think that, what can you argue to that, right? And it's not that we're trying to quote unquote invade space or take up space. And the way that I look at it is this, is an asexual is probably going to always be your best ally in your fight, because we have no fight anywhere else. So we are generally some of the biggest allies of the LGBT community. And we are also some of the best friends. And, in the sense that we know and we understand that what it's like in a way that nobody else does. And that's the neat thing about being asexual, is that we have a very unique perspective, because we've gotten the pushback and we are almost outsiders within the circle.
Yeah. Am I right in saying it's only 1% of the population identifies asexual?
only 1% ish identify. However, I would say that as time goes on, more and more people are identifying, simply because many people are very much like me. It's not talked about in schools and such. It's not discussed. I mean, if it wasn't for me talking to my children wouldn't have any idea about what it is. And for a lot of people, yeah, they just simply do not know what it is. And so I find a lot of people, when I talk about certain experiences of mine or just things about me and my asexuality, I get a lot of people that go, huh, that's like me. And so I think more and more people will and start identifying, because they're learning that it actually exists. Whereas when I grew up, I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a good thing. And this is what we said in their YouTube channel when we mentioned that it's a small percentage of people are identifying as asexuality. But when you look at how many years ago, how many people were out as gay, it was nothing like it is now, because it wasn't as talked about, it wasn't as accepted. Whereas, you know, give or take another 5-10 years, that percentage will be a lot higher, because like you said, people will be sitting listening to this or educating themselves or finding out elsewhere and going, hang on, that is me, you know, that I fit into that category. And like you say, it can be quite emotional and overwhelming to know that you belong somewhere, you have a place. Absolutely. You have a support group.
Absolutely. And like I said, the one of the nice parts about asexuality in particular is that it is very fluid. It's like, I don't go out and tell people I'm a gray sexual. And there's a lot of reasons why I don't do that. And first and foremost, I don't classify myself as a gray sexual or a demisexual, because that idea is so confusing. And it also, again, it creates this whole, I'm the person who's going to be able to penetrate that wall of, you know, whatever. And so I tend to stick to and identify fully as asexual, because if people don't have the expectation that there's a crack somewhere, they won't look for it. They won't try to find it, and it won't become a personal mission. And whereas when you do, then that's what people look for. People look for those cracks. People look for that insertion. How can I break this? How can I crack this wide open without? And so just by using that full on asexual, I don't experience sexual attraction. I don't have to tell anybody that. Every once in a while I do. It's something that over time, that's what I do. I don't ever say it, but I will make it known that this part of it has changed, but it also is subject to change back. Right? Because, like, again, it's one of those things where, for me in particular, it's fluid.
You mentioned that you discuss asexuality with all sexualities with your children. Mm-hmm. How would you feel if one of them came to you and said that they were asexual or gay or even straight?
God forbid they're straight. How dare they?
Well, here's the thing, is that this is the way that I run my house. And literally and figuratively, I have no closets in my house. And so no matter no matter who you are, that's who you are. And I will love and respect you as a human being and as a person, your choices in life, as well as the ones that aren't choices. You know, you are you. And that's just the way I think everybody should be, is free to be who you are, no matter where you are.
Absolutely. So if anyone listening or is any youngsters out there or whatever, what advice would you give them, or would you direct them to certain, you know, are there asexuality groups or websites that you would recommend, etc.?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. The one that has been very helpful for me is called AVEN, which is the Asexuality Visibility and Education Network. So it's aven.org. And it is a great resource for trying to find out a little bit more about asexuality. It was formed by David J. in 2001, I believe. And it's a great place online to talk to other people about your own personal identity as well as your own personal experiences. And then there's also a younger lad who I find has a ton of great information on YouTube, and his channel is Slice of Ace, which is a great resource for helping to find a little bit more about asexuality. He does talk to other people. He gets a lot of questions and things like that about asexuality in general, and tries to help them. And then the other one that I find very helpful is Ace Dad Advice. And he is another one on YouTube and TikTok and all sorts of places, who is roughly the same age as me, who roughly found out about asexuality at a similar time as I did. And, and he's a great resource for all ages, really. And it was actually him who, because again, when I started searching, I found everybody was younger than me. This was some new niche identity that, if you weren't 20 something, then you weren't included. And when I found Ace Dad Advice, it was like, no, we do exist. There are, right? This has been going on for a while. Okay, right. So he's another great resource, especially as somebody who is in the, middle to late 40s, who you can find to be like, okay, now I feel included. And he's got a lot of great information on asexuality and different types of relationships and how to kind of break down your own identity. And so that, not that anybody necessarily needs a label, but you want to feel, sometimes having a label is just enough to kind of give you that whole sense of self-identification for nobody else other than yourself. And that's I think important to people.
So there is a big support network out there. I will make sure we link all these in the description of the podcast so people can go and visit them and check them out, because there's only so much we can fit into this little podcast. And as we say, Brandy, you're just one type of asexuality, and under a big umbrella. So there'll be a lot more information out there on these other websites. So absolutely. My final question to you, Brandy.
Okay.
If you were to have your ideal partner, what would that person look like and why?
Ooh, I would, it's so weird, but it would be, my partner would be a gay male, right? Because I love the way that a gay male makes me feel, and just, I can squish on them and love on them and without expectation from them. I love that. But at the same time, I would also want them to have everything that they need. So it would definitely, my person would be somebody who is able to have a somewhat beyond platonic.
Am I right in saying that it's pan-romantic?
Pan-romantic, and it would be.
So someone who can have a relationship with someone for all the intimacy and the romance and the love, however, get their sexual desires from someone else.
From somebody else.
Yes. So you get all the benefits without the sex.
Exactly, right? And I mean, come on now, like you've got somebody to check your wardrobe for you and tell you have spinach in your teeth without being turned off by the fact that you've got spinach in your teeth, sure. Because they weren't sexually attracted to you in the beginning, like at all. So it's I don't know, it's so weird. But yeah, that whole idea of a multi-person partnership for me, because I know if it was another woman, I would be jealous. That's just me, right? I would be jealous. So I wouldn't want somebody that likes women. So
am I right in saying that the amount of asexuals that then become open, the percentage would be quite high, because if they are getting into a relationship with someone and their partner wants sex, they can open their relationship for them to go elsewhere. Would that be a wrong assumption?
You know what? I'm not going to say that that's a correct assumption. I'm also not going to say it's a wrong assumption, because I think each asexual person has their own personal needs. So the chances, I think, would be higher in having an open relationship or a multi-partner relationship because of that need. But to say that as a perfect stat, I can't.
And also because, as we know, the spectrum under asexuality is so varied. We're making the assumption there that this type of person I'm talking about doesn't have sex, but we know for a fact that certain asexuals in a romantic relationship do have sex with their partners.
Yes, yeah, yes. And I mean, for myself, I was one of those people who I knew what my partner wanted. I knew what made my partner happy, and therefore I gave my partner what made them happy. But the careful balance when you're dealing with asexuality is you have to have, and I'm going to use this term that I've heard before, was you have to have a menu, so to speak, of what you are willing to do, what you're not willing to do, and those deal breakers have to be respected. Everything else can be maneuvered through. But as far as asexuals go, like if they absolutely do not want sex, that is a deal breaker for them, then there has to be, at least as far as I'm concerned anyway, there has to be accommodations made so that that person can have those needs, should they have them, be met. Like if you put two asexual people together, but they're hetero-romantic or even homo-romantic, if neither one of them have any desire for sex, then why would they open up their relationship? Sure. It makes no sense, right? But if you get into a relationship with somebody who does enjoy the act of sex and you don't, and both are asexual, then again it becomes how are we going to maneuver through this? And the discussions are the worst, but they have to happen. They absolutely have
all
to
about
happen.
Communication. Communication is key. Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
I like the way you said that about the menu. Having the thing, it's not like an all-you-can-eat buffet. I mean, even me, I have a menu. If I'm going into a relationship with someone, there's certain things that I like to have on my menu, and then there's certain things that I definitely don't want on the menu.
Yeah.
So it's about trust, I think, as well, and honesty.
Yeah, and right at the start as well, and this is what I think you'll agree with, Brandy, when you're meeting someone else, you don't want to be dating for weeks on end and then coming out as asexual. You want to say right at the start so you don't waste any time and they know what they're getting into, what's on the menu and what's off the menu.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Like, I get a lot of people that would, when I go on a dating site or whatever, I put it right on there, right? And for some people, like that's a what the hell is an asexual kind of what is that? And and so it's as much as it's a topic of conversation, it's also the ability to be like, oh hell no, right? Because I get it, I understand. It is
you
not
respect
for
that there's
everyone.
people like that. Exactly. You can't you can't please everybody and everyone. It's going to be a deal breaker for them. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I will fish you out. I will fish you out, all you that are trying to literally be like, oh, well, I can change your mind. It has nothing to do about changing my mind.
They're like, oh, I want a challenge. Oh, you're asexual. Wait till I'm finished with you. No.
I'm finished with you. You won't be anymore. It's like,
oh no, I cringe. Never ever say that to an asexual person.
You'd be surprised.
So is there anything else you want to ask, Lee?
No, I'm good.
Brandy, anything else you'd like to add? Have we missed anything you feel is important?
Like I said, it's just the most important thing I can say about asexuality in general is that if you, first and foremost, it is valid. You are valid.
Yeah.
And it's important for people to know, and it's important for people to hear, and that we are not here to take up queer space. We are here to remind ourselves that we have a place in this whole queer identity, situation, and that for people to know and understand that we want to support you just as much as we want to feel supported. And I think that's very important in this particular community. And as we continue to grow as a community, it's important to know and include everyone. As
Absolutely.
Our allies are just as important as the queer members itself, but at the same time, queer members, guess what? It's like, yes, we are here. Yes, we do exist. And we're not here to impede on your space.
Or rain on anyone's
rain on your parade.
No. Absolutely.
Here,
well said. Completely agree.
That's the way I see it.
And where can people find you, Brandy? Where can they find you online?
Well, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. Both of them are at Dance in Line, which is it is my business name that I use, and I use it on purpose because I do want to make sure that my business is included as a queer owned and queer run business, so that it becomes a safe place for. And and I teach line dancing, which happens to be a very inclusive area of dance per se all across the globe. So I take a lot of pride in using that name at Dance in Line, because it has always been a safe place for all. So
love it. And as always, guys, if you've got any questions for Brandy, you can get in touch with us. Visit our website, reallifegaze.com. Click on the contact us button, and we'll make sure any comments and messages get forwarded to Brandy. But of course, if you just want to send us a message and for more information, please remember our website is there, reallifegaze.com. It has all links to our socials, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And also will take you back to our YouTube channel, where we have all of our old 25 episodes still available to watch, which includes our asexuality episode with Brandy. Woohoo! So before we go, Brandy, we are going to spin a wheel. We do this every episode. Right. This week it's going to be who is most likely to. So out of the three of us, okay, we're about to spin the wheel. Lee, are you ready? Tiff, are you ready?
Yes, hold on. Let me just switch clothes.
Get into your sparkly dress.
Okay, yes.
Spin that wheel. This week, who is most likely to become a crazy cat lady? Brandy, let's start with you. You're our guest. Who's most likely to become a crazy cat lady?
That would be me.
No, but you have to justify your answer. Why would it be you?
I don't have anything else to be attracted to in my life. Well, we all know the reason my justify is because people. I love my cats. I do. I love my cats, and I think if I was to say Lee can't be it, because he's too busy doing all the other things. And let's be real, that would take attention away from him, right, Lee?
True.
Cute one in the room anymore, so it can't be Lee. And for Gareth, Gareth can't be the crazy cat person because he just doesn't have enough room in his house.
It's true. My house is too small. Otherwise, I would definitely be a crazy cat man, because I love cats. I've had cats. I've got two boys, and they're just gorgeous beings. And I can see myself in the future, if things don't go my way, having 10 cats, but I'd have to move to a bigger house.
I was going to say it has to be a different house. If we're going by current situations right now, yes, it would
Then
have
Brandy.
to be me. It would have to be. It would have to be me. Yeah.
But in future, if I get a bigger house,
In the future,
probably
it's
me.
all you. It's all you.
So guys, that has been our All About Asexuality episode. Again, thank you very much, Brandy, for joining us. We've loved having you on. Thank you
Thank you so much for having me.
We will see everyone next week. I've been Gareth.
And I've been Lee.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.